Still with me, criminal defense attorneys and former prosecutors Franz Borghardt and David Bruno. Franz, I'll start with you. The charges were originally dropped because prosecutors got some new information that the gun may have been modified. They did some testing. They realized that the gun perhaps had not been modified, and their testing did show that the trigger had to be pulled for the gun to fire, contradicting what we've heard a number of times from Alec Baldwin. It's going to a grand jury now. What we know about grand juries is they only hear evidence from one side. They hear the evidence that prosecutors want them to hear. So we're pretty sure that new charges are going to be coming down.
Well, right. So this is a prosecution that they've already prosecuted him once. Why they're going to the grand jury to do this is kind of silly to me, because we all know they're going to indict him, right? And we also kind of all know his finger absolutely was on the trigger. He absolutely fired the gun. And candidly, I'm willing to believe that he didn't believe or doesn't believe that he fired the gun, but I would look for an indictment. Maybe the new evidence is something to do with the firearm. Maybe it's cooperating witnesses with regard to the plea. I think they moved too quickly, too loudly before. I think they will move a little bit more diligently and deliberately now. And look, it's the same legal defense team that's going to represent him, so it's not like it's going to become any easier for the prosecution.
Yeah, and David Bruno, that legal team basically called the first charges that were brought against him a terrible injustice. They're kind of going down that same route. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, the prosecution is limping into the next case, all right, because they already have dismissed the case. And, yeah, it was without prejudice, but this is such a high-profile case. It's going to be hard to see any juror that has no idea about what happened here. And if they didn't think that they had a good case then, I'm really excited to see why they think they have a good case now. What has changed? Is it Alec Baldwin's statements that we frequently see defendants making out-of-court statements about admissions and various different contradictory statements? Or is it new forensics? Because at issue is the pressure that the trigger would have required, or was it malfunctioned, or was there a problem with the gun? I still don't know. I'll welcome the new information, but at the very least, we know that the prosecutor is limping into this next case.
Yeah, you know, Franz, one of the things that I think was sort of learned once the new prosecutors took over is that there were a number of misfires of this gun. So there's that. But does this boil down to a very simple equation? You're going to call in some FBI folks to talk about the testing to say, look, the way we tested this, the only way this gun would fire is if the trigger was pulled. Alec Baldwin's going to get on the stand and say, I did not, absolutely did not pull the trigger. I cocked it, but my finger, I practiced it. You heard him. I practiced it all the time. I did not pull the trigger. The gun went off on its own. Is it going to really boil down to that and who the jury believes?
So we're living in that world, Michael, where it's all about negligent prosecution, like prosecution for gross negligence. And it's not just this case, right? And a lot of people are inflamed about the gun issue in this case. It was an accident, right? That at the end of the day, no one's going to say he intentionally did this. So yes, it's really going to just come down to that. And unfortunately, reason number 1,000,001, you don't give interviews when you're being prosecuted. He has to take the stand now. He has to address his bad interview.
Yes, he does. And again, involuntary manslaughter requires reckless actions causing death. So I imagine we're going to hear a lot about what was going on that set. He apparently skipped some trainings, things of that nature. Of course, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's issues are going to be brought in. Are those intervening causes? A lot to sift through in this particular prosecution, as you gentlemen mentioned. All right, stand by.